So today's topic is going to be on interviewing skills, specifically towards one of the two Burnett positions, the honors orientation ambassador position or the team leader position. So we're going to go a little bit more specific into how to prepare for those types of interviews. Just a little bit about our office and what we do. Most people think career service is a place to go to get a job, right? Honestly, y'all are thinking that, right? But we do a lot more than just resumes and interview prep. We do also help with exploration. So if you want to learn more about your major, what to do with it, how to research employers, where you might want to work, we can help you kind of explore your options and possibilities and come up with kind of an action plan of what you want to do while you're here at UCF. You build a nice competitive resume with relevant experience, and that relates to your interest and your areas of interest. Experience, what are those opportunities to gain relevant hands-on experience? So internships, co-ops, service learning, but there's also job shadowing, volunteerism, relevant projects. So all of these things that you can do while you're at UCF, how do you find those opportunities, and then how do you communicate those things once you've done them on your resume? So that goes into employability skills, is how do you become an employable Knight? And that's through communicating your strengths, your experiences, your accomplishments through verbal, whether it's meeting recruiters at the honors breakfast, right? Or internship fair, networking events, on your resume, which we talked about last week. So you can watch the video that was recorded last week. And through your interviewing skills, which is what we're going to discuss today. How can you successfully communicate to potential employers in general, but specifically to the Burnett Honors College, that you have what it takes for the position you're applying for. So we're going to go over the purpose of the interview, what types of formats you'll experience for these interviews, and the process of the interview, so what that looks like when you get the invite to come in to interview, how to prepare before, during, and after that experience, and what to do to follow up through thank you letters and concluding that. And we'll discuss the STAR technique as well, which I've given you a handout on. It's a two-sided handout. We'll talk about the elevator pitch and the STAR technique today. So first off, the purpose of the interview. What's the point? Obviously, it's for them to get to know you, but there's also a purpose for you to get to know the department, the position, and whether you're going to be a good fit. So an interview is a two-way communication. You are interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. You want to make sure there's good person-environment fit so that both parties involved get satisfaction and a great experience during that time if you're selected for a position. So first and foremost, it's a way for you to sell yourself. Who are you? What have you done? What have you accomplished? You get to learn more about the position and what all that entails beyond just the job description that you read when you apply, because you can ask those questions in this situation. And an example of your communication skills, and notably your nonverbal communication skills. So most of how we communicate with each other is not what you say, but how you say it. So we'll talk about some of those nonverbal skills. So for these two positions, the HOA, generally about 20 minutes. It's you against a panel, so it's a panel format. And it's probably gonna be about 2 to 3 interviewers, okay? And that's just Q&A, interview questions about your resume, your experience, your accomplishments. The team leader interview is about 60 minutes, and that's a group format. How is a group format different than a panel format? Does anybody know? Yeah.
You're interviewing with other students, so it's going to be a group of students with 1 or 2 people who are interviewing you.
That's correct. So you won't be the only interviewee in a group format. There will be other people interviewing for the same position in the room. So we call both of these formats really hostile environments. Because they can be a little scary, a little stressful, right? Because now you have more people. It's not just a one-on-one conversation. Whether it's panel style, you're talking to multiple people making the hiring decision, or group format, you're competing against other people in the same space rather than abstractly through knowing that they're interviewing other people. So both can be quite challenging. So what are some strategies do you think would help you with either or both of these formats. Has anybody experienced one of these formats before? Yeah? Yeah. What worked for you? Or what was that like?
Well, I've always been told that the biggest thing that you can do in an interview to make yourself look better is to smile the whole, most of the time, if not the whole time. Making eye contact.
Yeah.
A lot of them, like you were saying, a lot of the nonverbal things necessarily
That's right.
are crucial.
Absolutely. The nonverbal skills is about 80% of our communication. So in that type of environment, you can stand out through the how you communicate.
Yeah, I mean, going off of that, I interviewed for a job in high school, and if they smile at you and you don't smile back, you're automatically excused from.
That's right. Because one of the things in any type of interview, really, they're trying to gauge personality. And especially for these types of roles, they're student-facing roles. You'll be a peer mentor, a peer advisor, right? So you have to have a nice personality, good environment, good enthusiasm, right? Warm, approachable, relatable, to be able to talk to students, to parents, to help advise them, to guide them with the tasks and the different responsibilities that you'll be performing, right? So definitely personality is what's being looked at most during really any interview, but particularly this one. So how do you overcome the group format with multiple people? One thing is I try not to treat it like a, what is the TV show with the competition where everybody's clamoring all over each other, the obstacle course? Try not to treat it like that. Treat it more like a conversation. It's an open discussion, an open conversation amongst your peers and colleagues and friends, okay? So if you kind of remove the competitiveness label from the format, it helps you to just relax just enough to be able to keep that smile on, to keep that eye contact going. And don't feel like you have to one-up the next person, right? So if somebody shares their example, don't feel like you have to force a better example as a response for yourself, okay? Just stay authentic to you, to your experience, your accomplishments. Your experience brought you to the table. So you have the skills, the strengths that's desired already. So as long as you're genuine in sharing how your experience has given you the skills needed for this position, it doesn't have to be a constant, oh, I'm better than you because of this. It can be a very challenging environment, so we just have to really force our mind to still kind of think of it as a one-on-one and just bring it down a few notches. You're being evaluated through the entire process. So as you mentioned, having that warm smile, right? You don't smile when you respond, you're being judged. Even before you get into the room, how do you interact? They can see and observe, or how you interact with reception when you come in, right? So any interview that you go into going forward, from the moment you make first contact to first day on the job, and therefore you're being evaluated through that entire process. So you do have to turn it on, right? Keep that extrovert going. Some of the questions will, as with regard to these types of positions, will revolve around you taking initiative, leadership roles, or leading projects, how you communicate. So if you can think of times when you've communicated maybe to a large group of people, or when you've been in a mentorship type of role, you can think about examples from there. Customer service, right? So just because you may have had a customer service job that title-wise doesn't relate, the skill of serving another person is absolutely transferable into these types of roles. So think about those types of experiences as well. How have you maybe dissolved or diffused a tough situation, or navigated a difficult conflict or situation as well? And teamwork. You're going to be working and operating on a team in both of these positions. So thinking about how you've worked on a team, how you've led a team, how you've supported a team, and what was your contribution to those teams. So these are some of the typical types of things they're going to be looking for in whatever questions are given to you during those environments. So if you haven't already applied or you haven't received the invitation to call, that's the first step to an interview. You get the call to schedule the time to meet. So even on the phone, maintaining that professional enthusiasm, smile as you're talking. You can hear it in your voice when you smile. Professional voice message, so if you can't answer the call, make sure your voicemail greeting is professional. At least record your name so they know they've got the right person. Make sure you take notes during the conversation, who you're speaking to, when is the interview going to be scheduled, where is it, directions to get into the space, and make sure if you do have a message, you respond in a timely manner, okay? The next thing is to ask relevant questions. So when you do either answer or you call back, what's the interview schedule going to be looking like, when to arrive, names of the people that you would be interviewing with, so you can request that information in advance. They might not give it to you. Any interview in the future, they might not. It might just be the HR person that just says, oh, it'll be a variety of hiring managers in the room. I don't know if they'll be able to supply that for these types of interviews.
Say that again?
If they were to ask who they would be interviewing with.
Yeah, we can tell that. In fact, let people go ahead. I'll stay over here so that people on tape can see too. So for the Honors Orientation Ambassador interview, it'd be myself, Rex Roberts, Laura Zerkes, and one other, usually Jessica Messery Jeffrey, or possibly Brandy Blue. And then for the team leader, it'll be Jenna Whitman, Marty Dupuis, possibly a third person. Yes?
Awesome. Great. Look at that. You got the answers right now. So you can that. Why is this helpful to know who you're going to be talking to in advance?
If you're running a thank you email to address who your interviewers were.
Yeah, so any type of correspondence that you have, you can direct to that particular person. Anything else?
Talking points. So you
Talking
can do
points.
research beforehand, maybe go on a LinkedIn, look them up prior, and then bring up different things during the actual interview.
Absolutely. So doing your research before the actual interview, look them up. The staff directory on the website, LinkedIn profiles. What's an interesting thing about these individuals that you might bring up as talking points during the interview or ask questions about during the interview. All right, so that's a helpful strategy going forward with any interview, is doing your research on the people and the department or the organization that you're interviewing with, okay? When you are sitting down to meet the employer or the supervisor, the hiring manager, whoever you're interviewing with, that interview, basically there's 3 underlying questions. We kind of talked about this already, but what are you like? Are you somebody that I would enjoy working with, or that I can envision my team working with successfully? What's your personality like? Can you perform the responsibilities of the job? Right? So this is why you really want to study that job description to know what the expectations are, what are the tasks, the projects, responsibilities, can you perform that? And also so that you can come up with examples of having done those things already. And then are you going to be a good fit with the organization, with the department, with the team that you'll be working on, with the students or parents with whom you'll be working, right? What's that fit going to look like? So essentially all of this comes down to relatability, approachability, professionalism, enthusiasm. All of those things equate to personality. How many of you get nervous right before an interview? All hands should go up, right? I still get nervous too. I get nervous even doing presentations sometimes. So practice and prepare, right? That's how you're going to navigate and overcome any nerves before an interview. Don't let that interview be the first time that you practice an interview. So there's a large majority of students will still stumble through those first 2 or 3 interviews that they have. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. Okay, so even if you do stumble a little bit during your interview, it's okay. It ain't over till it's over. All right? So just like dancing, right? Choreography, if you misstep, most of the time the audience doesn't even realize. So you just got to keep, bounce back, keep going, focus back onto the question and move forward. What you can do is schedule a mock interview with our team with Angie or myself or another career counselor, and we can practice with you in advance. If there's enough time before your interview, look through Handshake for an appointment and request that session. Also, and I'll go over it I think on the next slide, we have virtual practice interview called Big Interview, where you can just do your own virtual mock interview on your own time. Doing a mock interview allows you to get constructive feedback. What's constructive feedback?
Positive and negative.
Positive and negative. Yeah, just because it's negative doesn't mean that you should, shut down all operations. That's meant to be constructive, to give you advice on how you can improve, right? What can you do to make the next situation better, the next interview better? Also, especially with the virtual mock interview, you can see yourself, you can hear yourself, so you can pick up on a lot of those non-verbals, the communication, your body language. Are you brushing your hair back, scratching your nose, pushing your eyeglasses up all the time? Right? What are some of those quirks that you might have that you may not realize, and then you can begin to correct? And whether it's in person or virtual, listening to yourself. How do you speak? How do you communicate? Do you use filler words? Are you organized, or do you go off on a tangent? Do you use more professional type of language or conversation, or do you use casual or informal type of communication? So you can hear catchphrases, tone of voice, speed of voice, and we will be able to give you that feedback too, because that's our job, is to listen, to notice these things that you may not be noticing, and say, here at this point is when you went off on this tangent and didn't really answer the question. Let's bring it back. Let's show you how you can reorganize your response. So absolutely schedule a mock interview with our office, or you can go to Big Interview, ucf.biginterview.com, create a free account, and you can create a sample interview with whatever questions you want to prepare for, or difficulty level, types of questions, industry level, and a pre-recorded employer will come up and ask you that question, and then with a webcam you can record your response so that you can play it back and see for yourself how you responded. There's also tutorials that you can watch, so lots of tips and videos that you can experience to learn more effective strategies and skills. You can also do a practice interview and send that link so somebody else can see it, either a counselor or an advisor or mentor, coach, friend, mom, anybody that can give you constructive feedback. Moms are great, but sometimes they're a little biased, right? And you can do as many as you want. So once you create a free account, you can go in there as often as you want to, create as many interviews as you'd like. It also includes a resume building tool too, so you can always check that out as well. We have another resource on our website as well called Optimal Interview, so either service will do the same thing. I prefer Big Interview. I think it's a little more user-friendly. It's got a lot more resources in there. But this is something free that you get to have as a student. Check it out and use it anytime you have an interview scheduled. Do a practice interview beforehand. Research, we already talked about, right? Researching the people, but we have to research everything else too. So the job description, start with that. That's your best friend in your job search. That's where you're going to see exactly what the hiring manager is looking for in a candidate. Ideal strengths, knowledge areas, skills, and abilities. All of that is usually outlined in a good job description anyway. Hopefully we've got some content in there. Going forward, save those things so that you can use that to tailor your resume and to refer to in your research and preparing for an interview. But also we want to research the department, the organization. Start with the website. What's their mission statement, their values, what are the services that they provide, how long have they been around, what kind of activities or things do they put on, programs, projects. Do a news search. Have they been featured in the UCF News or Google News Search or in Nicholson School Communication? They have the nightly news and a few other platforms as well. What kind of things can you learn about this department, this program, that you might not see otherwise simply on their About Us page, so that you can bring that content to your interview and come up with questions based off of that, or highlight what you know. Because interviewers love to know what you know about them already. They'll be impressed with the knowledge that you come with to the interview. So think about what you know about them already, what do you need to know, and do that work in advance to find that information out, okay? To inform your questions. Attire. Do we all have professional attire? Okay. Think about what you have and what you might need to level it up. Any interview, we recommend suit, blazer, slacks, or skirt that matches. Low key on jewelry, makeup. Make sure hair is pulled away from the face, so you're less tempted to push it back. Anything that covers the face is distracting, and non-verbally, generally you're hiding something. All right, so we can avoid temptation by pulling hair back or pinning it back some way. If you do not have a suit, Nitro Suits is available through the Knight's Pantry, where you can obtain professional attire or rent a suit for the week. So that's an opportunity too. And we just had it, but every semester we do JCPenney's Suit Up event, where we partner with JCPenney and offer up to 60% off of professional clothing purchases. So you can always find those events out in Handshake and check those out. Or there's lots of opportunities to obtain professional attire at a low cost if you have trouble affording that, through Goodwill or Salvation Army, or even Ross or Marshalls usually have really good deals too. So it doesn't have to be an expensive $300, three-piece suit get up with the vest and the handkerchief and everything. All right, a blazer with nice professional slacks, closed-toed shoes, a button-down collared shirt will go a long way. And what we want is a nice professional image that shows that you take yourself seriously, that you are a serious applicant for the position that you're applying to. So if you don't have a blazer, you could partner, or you could pair that maybe with a cardigan or a vest, or at least simply a collared button-down shirt, okay, or blouse. So whatever is a more traditional conservative style attire and clothing. Any questions so far? Last week you guys kept throwing them at me. Soaking it all in, okay? All right, so part of the professional attire is making a great impression. Other things that you can do to make that great first impression: be on time. What's on time?
15 minutes early.
Yes, good job. If you are on time for your interview, you are late. So we want to show up 10 to 15 minutes early. Make sure you allot for travel. So if you live on campus, how long will it take for you to walk here? If you are living off campus, allot time for the bus schedule, or parking, garage, circling like vultures for a parking spot. You want to make sure that you have enough time to get here. And if you are walking or from the other side of campus, make sure you have time to cool down. So we're not looking like a hot mess when we arrive, right? We say leave your cell phone in the car. We know you guys are attached, right? Surgically attached to those things. At least turn it on silent or turn it off if you have it with you. I don't even want the vibrate on, because if it's on the table, it'll make that vibrating sound, and that can be a distraction to you and to everybody else in the room. You want to be respectful of who you're sitting down with as well. Positive enthusiasm, so nice warm smile, nice firm handshake up and down. No turnsies on the handshake, no princess or dead fish. All right, up and down a few times, pump it up, and make sure to retreat. So let go. Sometimes we forget. We're so excited and we just keep going. All right, up and down a few times. Always while standing. So even if you're sitting and somebody new comes into the room, stand up so you can meet them eye level to shake hands. Don't reach up from your seat to shake hands, okay? Eye contact. It's natural to glance away, so don't feel like you have to sit there and stare lovingly into that person's eyes the entire conversation, because that's awkward, right? That's not an authentic experience. But we do want to try and maintain eye contact. So as you're speaking, especially when there's going to be multiple interviewers, making sure everybody has a turn, right? So if one person asks the question, you're gonna start eye contact with that person, move to the next, and everybody gets a turn until you're done. I like to start and end eye contact with the person who asked the question. So I'll start and then I'll end my answer with that person, okay? There was one interview that we had in our office a few weeks ago where whoever asked the question got the eye contact. So the rest of us were just like, I'm here too, hello. So we felt like we were excluded from that conversation. All right, so that's why we want to share eye contact with the entire room. But again, it's natural to glance away as you're thinking. Just got to remember to bring it back. Okay? Posture. How do we sit in our chair? Sit up nice and straight, right? No slouching back. If you're in a wheelie chair, try not to swivel and turn and scoot, right? Feet firmly on the ground. Sit up nice and straight. You don't want to lean back, okay? If we sit forward when you're answering, it's easier to lean forward with interest. So it shows enthusiasm, interest in the question when you lean forward to respond with your answer. And just don't be tempted with those wheelie chairs. For example, I did a mock interview a few months ago with a student. I asked her a question. I thought it was a pretty good question. Apparently it was very off-putting. That's what she displayed anyway through her nonverbal. She went like that. What does that say?
Kind of intimidated by the question.
Intimidated by the question, yeah.
Perhaps that you weren't prepared for the question.
She wasn't prepared for the question. Yeah, she physically disconnected, right? So that's why nonverbal communication is so important, to realize what you're doing or how you're doing it, because she may not have felt that at all. She might have been like, oh, maybe that's her thinking pose, right? Maybe she wasn't intimidated. But what I saw was a physical disconnect from the situation. So we just want to monitor those things. Try not to be tempted with wheelie chairs. We want to sit up nice and straight, feet on the ground, no crossing of the arms, right? Keep it nice and open. If you gesture with your hands, I talk with my hands a lot, right? So keep it within your body frame and not in front of your face. So if you do talk with your hands, just kind of rein it in a little bit. You can control that a little bit, okay? And then of course watch for like putting your hair back, fixing your glasses, scratching your ear, things like that. You want to pay attention to those quirks that you probably have but don't realize that you have. Okay? And a nice smile throughout the whole thing.
Like if you like fidget with your hands, like can you just have like something in one hand that you just quietly do?
It depends, as long as it's not like an auditory or visual distraction. So don't bring a fidget spinner, right? But even like pens, if you have a pen in your hand, it's very tempting to, you know, click it, things like that as you're talking. I do it all the time. I'm a fidgeter, so when I'm talking, I'm clicking, thinking. So it's usually better to try and not have anything in your hand, or at least maybe holding onto your padfolio or a notepad, so it's not a loud or an obvious visual distraction. You don't want to be remembered for the wrong reasons. Oh, that clicking sound is really irritating, right? So no clicking of the pens, or try not to have a pen that has a clicker then, so you can still hold it in your hand, but it's not the button. So maybe with a cap instead. There's a few other things. And so that's why we want to do a practice interview, so we can kind of talk you through what type of options are going to be best for you and what you need. Because sometimes we are kinesthetics, and you know, somebody who really needs that, or maybe ADHD or something, you might need that physical to ground you. Okay, well let's talk about what those options look like. That's going to be the best scenario to keep distractions at a minimum. Okay, good questions? Anything else? No? All right. So I went ahead of myself. It's all right, I get excited about this stuff. Nonverbal communication, again, more than half of what we say is how you say it. So you may have an excellent example and you may say it in a perfect star format, But if there's something visual going on, it can distract from the whole answer. So we want to understand what your body language is communicating, but also pay attention to your interviewer's body language, right? Are they not looking at you? Do they seem bored? You might need to adjust your tone or your pitch or your cadence to your voice. Make sure you're not monotone so that you can include them into the conversation with other cues, right? Maybe you need to have a stronger eye contact, and you might need to make some adjustments there depending on the body language of your interviewer. But don't overanalyze it either. Everybody has different habits. So don't take things too personally as well. Okay? All right, types of questions. So kind of touched on this a little bit. You can Google example interview questions until the sun comes up. There's so many out there that you can prepare for. But it's better to think about more of concept-based or things that you'll want to talk about rather than specific questions, because chances are these specific questions are not going to be asked verbatim in your interview, right? So they might ask about teamwork, but one interview might ask how you lead a team, the other one might ask how you support a team. So you're never going to be able to predict exactly what the interview question is going to be. But chances are you can predict that they'll ask something about working on a team or leading a group or a project, or when you had a problem solve and come up with the best possible solution to something. So what we want to do is try and think about more types of questions. Open-ended, or just more summary, more opinion-based types of questions. The best example of that is your tell me about yourself, and that one's pretty standard. That one's going to start off any interview that you're in. Hey, tell us a little bit about yourself, right? Why are you interested in this position? So on your handout, I have the elevator pitch on one side, the STAR technique on the other. That's going to be the best way to answer that type of question. What are you doing now? What have you done? That relates to what you're interviewing for, and what are you looking for? Okay? And we're going to keep it focused on the academics, the education, the experience, the relevant experience to the position. So you don't have to go back to the beginning and how you were 5 and you want to be an astronaut and then you realize you have a fear of heights and all right, we don't have to go back. Start with what you're doing now and then talk about the relevant past. Behavioral questions. These are your cue words. Tell me about a time when, or give me an example of, or describe a situation where, right? These are behavioral questions are looking for when you experience something specific. And so we want to search your memory and your experiences for a specific example. And the best way to do that, to respond to that type of question, is the STAR technique, which we'll go over in a little bit more detail on another slide. That helps to keep your answer organized. What we don't want is a general response. Tell me about a time when you had a conflict with a coworker. Find a specific example of when you had a conflict, right? Don't talk about how, oh, well, normally, everybody loves me and I get along well, but if something were to happen, here's how I would handle that. We don't want generalities or hypotheticals or minimize that as much as possible. There might be a time where you get asked a question and you have absolutely no example for that. So address that lack, and then you can respond with a hypothetical. But chances are you're going to have some sort of example that you can relate to the question, and we're going to talk about that specific example in your response, okay? Qualifications, these are easy, right? What have you done that relates to the job? And this is where studying the job description is helpful, because now you can reflect on the qualities they're looking for and when you've had experiences with those qualities. And then off-beat, those are other types of questions. Sometimes they're popular in higher ed, in student roles as well. So, for example, if you were a kitchen utensil, what utensil would you be and why? Right? These are the hardest to prepare for because it could be anything, right? But the answer isn't necessarily the right answer. There's not a right kitchen utensil, right, for that example. It's more about how you respond. Does it throw you off completely? Do you disengage? Do you have a sense of humor? Can you problem solve on the spot? Are you creative and resourceful, right? It's more about the qualities of who you are and how you can handle those impromptu types of questions, okay? Other ones, these are kind of just in general. I'm not sure if they'll come up in your interview, but case study ones, so they might say how, if you were doing a advising session and a student was really resistant about signing up for this class, how might you respond to that, right? So it might be like a scenario, a hypothetical. That's where you can answer with a hypothetical. Stress, sometimes interviews may put a specific type of stress on you to see how you handle and perform under pressure. Case in point, group format. That's a stressful interview, right? Competing with your peers in that moment. So the environment is meant to, push your buttons a little bit to see how you interact with everybody in the room. How do you perform and answer those questions with that sense of enthusiasm and professionalism? Opinion, these are your opinions. What are your strengths, or what's been your greatest accomplishment, or how do you feel about XYZ topic? All right, so there's really not a right or wrong answer here either. It's more about how you answer that type of question. And then of course, proven successes. Those are pretty easy to prepare for. Your GPA, your projects that you've worked on, past experiences where you've been successful with something, okay? And the STAR method can be helpful in most questions there too. So STAR technique, you have a handout on it. This is one of the best ways to answer those types of behavioral questions where they ask you, tell me about a time when, or give me an example of, right? Start off with the S or the T, or sometimes both. Describe the situation. What happened? What did you need to accomplish? Or what was the context there? Okay? And then A is the action steps. What steps did you take to navigate that situation or to complete that task? And remember the I statements. So for example, if you are sharing a story about a group activity or assignment, a lot of times we resort to the collective we. Well, we did this and we were assigned that, so we thought we had to do this, and right? You probably have all been guilty of that. In an interview, your group isn't interviewing with you, so you have to remember what was your contribution to that group. You might have a few we statements, but we also want to highlight the I. What did you do? What was your contribution? What was your specific task or role as part of that group assignment? So that you can stand out to show what your accomplishments are. And then results. What happened? Was it a success? What did you learn from that experience? What might you do differently if it didn't go well or as expected? Okay? So what's the epilogue here to your story? So for example, let's have somebody read out the situation or task. Can you guys read that? Who wants to volunteer? All right. Gotta take her.
Or one or two? Have to choose one? All right.
Up here. Can you read this one?
Oh, that one. Oh, that's different. Oh. I was the advising coordinator for my college newspaper. We print 30,000 newspapers every other week and depended on advertising revenue. The revenue was falling off and several long-term advertisers were not renewing contracts.
All right, so we gave the situation, we gave the context, the goals, right? So somebody read out the action step.
I designed a new promotional package to go with the rate sheet and compared the benefits of reporter circulation with other ad media in the area. I also set up a special training session for the account executives with a School of Business Administration professor who discussed competitive selling strategies.
So specific steps, right? I designed, I set up special training, right? All right, who wants to read the results? Yeah.
So we signed contracts with 15 former advertisers for weekly ads and 5 for special supplements. We increased our new advertisers by 20% over the same period last year.
Perfect. And what's lovely here is the quantifiable data, right? We can, showing numbers gives that result more impact, more validity, right? So we have the results and the impact of that result. So does that answer the question? Describe an improvement that you developed which led to a significant contribution to a project, right? It's a very specific example, and it leaves little room to get distracted or go off on a tangent, right? So the STAR method is there to help you stay organized in your response by following those kind of a formulaic step-by-step answer. Does that help? Any questions about the STAR technique, types of questions, what to expect? Okay. So next part of the interview process is your chance to ask questions. So these are some example questions that you could ask, but that's also why we want to do research in advance so that you can come up with your own tailored questions to the job or to the department or to specific projects or things like that. But you know, if you want, take a picture of this slide or you can watch the video later, right? Yeah.
At what point in the interview would it be appropriate to ask questions?
So it kind of depends on the interview, but generally the interview process is, hey, tell us about yourself. They ask questions, you answer, and then they usually say, okay, we wanted to give you a chance to ask questions. Do you have anything that you'd like to know about us or the position or the department, company? But sometimes while you're talking about things that it might relate to the context of your response or the question that they asked. So you can follow up with a question of your own. But generally, every interview is going to give you a spot at the end to ask your own questions. And the trick here is to keep it related to the position or to the department and the what you'll be doing and your fit for the job. So questions to stay away from would be what?
What's the pay?
How much do I get paid? What happens if I call out sick?
Yeah, don't.
What would I be doing exactly?
What would I be doing exactly, right? You should have a general sense of the position description so you can rephrase that type of question to what are some example projects that I would be involved in, right? So you get a little bit more information than the what would I do. Or hey, can you describe a typical day in the workplace for this role, right? Yeah.
Do you ask like something like how many hours a week would it be?
Yeah, you could ask that because they want to see your general curiosity about the position, what the expectations are, and how you can meet those expectations. Mm-hmm. So that could be, you know, what's a typical work week look like? How many hours is that, or what types of things would I be doing in a typical week? Mm-hmm. Any other questions? So cheat sheet here, right? They're all going to be asking you these questions, by the way. But definitely, like I said, do your research, come up with your own questions, because you might be interviewing with each other, and what if somebody takes your question, right? So show your genuine interest in the position and the department and the program. Yeah?
Is it appropriate to not have any questions for your employer, potential employer?
Is it appropriate to not have any questions? What do you guys think?
Say no. You should want to say something.
Yes.
Ask
Yeah,
a question
something.
even if you already know the answer.
Yeah, even if
Yeah.
you already know it, just confirm something. That way you're showing that there's interest in your part as well.
Exactly. Yes, if they ask you, hey, do you have any questions for us? And you say no, I'm good. That's not good. You want to demonstrate that curiosity about the position, you're fit for the position, even if it's one question. Come up with something to ask for the interview to show that you have an interest in learning more from them, about them, or about the job. Okay?
I will say, if you did come in with questions and during the interview those questions were answered, rather than just saying, no, I don't have any questions, it would be beneficial to say, I actually did have a couple of questions, but you cleared those up for me in the interview, so thank you for that, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Just because then it shows that you did have the thought ahead of time to come up with those questions, but you did figure out those answers.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. Yeah, absolutely. So instead of saying, nope, sorry, we're good, you say, actually, yeah, originally I had a question about blah, 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 but we talked about that already, so.
But even
got the
more reason
information.
to have extra questions.
I always say prepare more questions than you would actually ask. So typically you would probably ask about 2 to 3 questions during this stage of the interview, but you would probably prepare 5 to 6 questions. Because if somebody does ask that question already, or the conversation just went there, and all of a sudden all of your questions are exhausted, yeah, we'd rather you have
Write
something.
them down.
Yeah.
Write them down. And a simple question, this last one. Yeah, I just wanted to know, when can I expect to hear from you regarding your decision? All right, that's a simple question to ask to close up that stage. So at least there's that. And then that gives you a chance to make a note about that timeline so you can follow up. Okay? Awesome. All right, so the closing the interview, this is where they might talk about next steps, like when can I expect to hear from you? They might share, oh, we've got more interview schedule, we're hoping to make a decision by this day and time, right? We'll reach out to you and let you know one way or the other. So they're gonna clarify what do those next steps look like. You can ask about those next steps as well, okay? This is a chance for you to reiterate your interest in the position, when you're giving your thanks and you're showing enthusiasm for the role, you say, you know, I really appreciated talking with you guys today. I just want to let you know I'm really interested in this role. I think my experience in here makes me a really great fit for this position, this opportunity, and I look forward to hearing from you. All right, so we can restate that. Get business cards, because even though you may have done your research in advance and you know who you're expected to talk to, what if it changes the day of? So make sure you get a business card from every interviewer so that you can send a tailored thank you note for each person. And I have an example thank you note that I've provided to you guys too. And then as you are closing, you're gonna shake hands with everybody again, okay? And express your gratitude. Yep.
I have a question about a group interview in general. How many interviewees should you expect to be interviewing with?
Oh, that's a good question.
For the team leader one specifically, it's between 4 and 6.
That's a small group.
Yes.
When I did my grad school interview, it was like 10, 15 in the room.
How do you get time to speak? How do you get time to speak to something that big?
It's kind of like popcorning around. So the interviewer will ask a question, and then whoever wants to start it off, they might raise their hand, or they might start their answer, and then you can kind of jump in as you need.
Like how many interviewers or observers like were there for that?
I want to say 2. There was a faculty and then a program coordinator. Yeah, it was intense. That was the scariest interview I've ever been on. But I got in. Here today. I've been on all kinds of tougher interviews too. So this is a piece of cake. You guys got this in the bag, okay? I've had my interview here for this position was 4 hours. I had to do a 20-minute presentation, a 40-minute Q&A with the entire career services team, a 60-minute Q&A with my career development team, and they took me out to lunch, which is a sneaky interview, by the way. So this is pretty good, all right, compared to what you could be facing. But this is all good prep for what you could be facing in the actual workplace. So it can be a lot tougher. Yeah, so don't think about quantity as how long should I spend in my response, like what's the right amount of time. Quality is better than quantity. Giving a nice, confident, organized response, whether it's 60 seconds, 90 seconds, the length of time isn't as important as giving a nice, clear, confident answer to a question. Okay? Thank you notes, send one to everybody, all right? After you are done with your interview, take some time, go sit on a bench somewhere or something, write down some notes about your experience there. Things that maybe stood out to you that maybe were a high focus area for the interviewers. Maybe they kept asking you about a certain project they were working on or a certain skill. Or maybe they were worried about a lack in skill. You can use a thank you note to overcome any objections that might come up. It's another opportunity for you to reiterate your interest in the position. It doesn't have to be a long thank you note. Just something simple that says, you know, thank you for your time. I really enjoyed speaking with you yesterday. Just wanted to share again my enthusiasm for the position, and just to let you know that I believe my experience here is a great fit for this position because XYZ, right? It can be, we prefer at least within 24 business hours. Send that out as an email. But you may prefer to do like a handwritten note, put it in the mail or drop it off the next day. So either way, get that note in there within 24 hours. Yep.
Does it have to be customized like per interviewer?
Yes. But again, it doesn't have to be a big long thing. So that's why you want to take notes right away after your interview so that you can jot down several things while it's fresh in your mind. And you may just pick one thing to talk about with each person. Or if you asked maybe about them, what do they love, what they do working for the college, right? You can highlight something. I really appreciate learning about XYZ from you, right? Or maybe during the questions that came up, one person asked about this and another person asked about that experience, then you can focus your answers to those people. So another reason for business cards collection is you can flip those business cards over and write notes on the back of it about what that person said or keywords or things that are attached to that specific person. So they have material to refer to. By the time you get home, things start to muddle up in here, right? The stress of the experience can alter your memory.
So I have a question. So let's say you get to the part of the interview where you ask them questions as well, and let's say you have your Padfolio with you. Can you also jot down notes during that time?
Yes. Yep, that's why we want you to bring a Padfolio to your interview so that you can write down notes. Don't write long notes, write short form, keywords, things to help jog your memory later. All right, but yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're asking questions, you'll want to write those answers down so that you can remember them later. Very good. All right, to summarize, be timely, do your research in advance on the position, the department, the college, anything that you can get your hands on related to this opportunity, okay? And do prepare in advance by practicing your interview, by obtaining professional attire, make sure it's nice and clean and hung up so it's not all wrinkled the morning of, okay? Don't try to wing it. I know some of us are really well under pressure and can go on the fly, but this is an opportunity to chance that? Probably not, right? Don't create a poor impression by leaving your phone on, right? Clicking your pen, pushing your hair back, right? Visual nonverbals. Don't be negative, insincere, or desperate, especially with that group format. We don't want to, again, try or make it seem like you're clamoring to one-up the person that just went before you. All right, just display that sincerity and authenticity throughout, and you'll be fine. You'll come off as a professional and confident applicant. And make sure you remember and get all the information that you need of who you are speaking with so that you can send those appropriate follow-ups later. Does anybody have any questions?
So if there's like some things you want to talk about, is it like appropriate to keep like notes on that in your Padfolio?
Yeah, so have your questions written down in advance. Bring that Padfolio with you with your questions so that you can glance down and refer to that. You can also take notes during, for example, if it's a long question or a two-parter question, you might want to jot down conflict with coworker, how resolve, right? So you don't have to write the question down verbatim, but maybe if it's a long question, you don't want to forget the other half of it. So you can write down some keywords, some notes while you're interviewing. You just want to be cognizant of how much time you're spending looking down writing. So you might maybe need to practice that, or like I said, come to a mock interview with us so that we can help prepare you for that situation.
Or you could always ask an interviewer to repeat the question.
Yes.
If you're not quite sure.
If you forget the second part of a question, can you repeat that second part again? I already forgot when I was answering my other part. Ask them to repeat, ask them to clarify. Like if they ask a question you're not really sure what they're getting at. Can you clarify that? Are you looking for an example of me leading a team or leading a project? Right? Just because we want to answer the question, the right question, and not assume that you have the question in your mind and you're answering something totally different. That doesn't really. Okay? Yeah.
So I understand like taking notes like during the interview, but like notes before the interview of experiences you've had or qualifications?
Mhm.
Is that okay?
Yeah, so you're gonna bring several copies of your resume, and I say bring an extra copy of your resume with you highlight certain things you know you want to talk about, jot down some keywords, circle a bullet, right? Things that you know you want to emphasize, or you can create your own notes page for that. Sometimes a resume is better for that visual because you already know where your things are on your resume. So just a visual marker of something rather than rewriting out the whole experience or accomplishment. And then every interviewer gets a copy of your resume. So that's why we want to bring multiple copies so everybody gets one. The group one, you don't need to give it to your 4 to 6 peers. Just the interviewers.
I would also just say with that question, just to be careful if you did make notes for yourself, to help yourself answer questions. Don't be like, reading your notes while you're trying to talk to the interviewers, because that's something
Correct.
that we would definitely notice as well.
Which is why we want you to think about certain examples or experiences by type rather than forming a response that's a script to a specific question, because if you're reciting a script, it can sound like you're reciting a script. And it leaves little room for improv as far as tailoring that response to the question that's being asked.
Like if an interviewer asks, what's your biggest weakness, and you refer to your notes to answer that, probably not great.
Oh, man.
Right.
I think my notes
You can take notes and bring notes, but hopefully those acts of preparation will keep it in your mind so that you don't need your notes. So you want to prepare enough where if you do have notes, you don't need them.
Maybe that's what you do while you're waiting for your interviewer, is you're reviewing your notes.
Right. Any other questions? Yeah.
I think one of my main concerns is the fact that I'm only a freshman and that I might not have a lot of actual college experience to reference. I don't have a lot of high school experience to reference, but I like to avoid doing that.
Okay.
Is there a way to emphasize how you want to grow in this position, or kind of to conceive I may not have experience in that area, but is there a way to kind of operate around that and emphasize where you're willing to go and how you're willing to grow throughout the situation?
Yeah, you can say I'm excited about this opportunity because I'm hoping that it will afford me the opportunity to gain these skills or to develop in these areas because my experience is limited. So start with the what you do have or what you do want rather than starting with the what I don't have.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't want to start an answer with, well, I don't have this or I don't have experience in that. Right? We want to start off with on a more positive tone, and you can overcome objectives that way. You're here, right? If you are in the room getting an interview, they obviously see something.
Yeah.
And generally, interviews, anybody on paper can do the job, right? So if you're there, you could do the job. It's about your personality. So how confident are you? Do you have a sense of humor? Are you relatable? Are you approachable? Are you professional? So try not to worry too much about what you don't have. Because if you get to an interview, you have something, right? And focus on what you do have instead of what they're missing or left. Or think about what might be similar or related. So if you didn't have a lot of job experience, maybe you volunteered. So you could draw from volunteerism experience instead. Or maybe classroom work ethic. Have you helped a teacher out with assignments or in gathering projects or class leader, right? There's bound to be some sort of transferable skill if you search for it and really reflect on your experiences. And again, that's why we want you to do a practice interview, whether it's with us or with Big Interview online, so that you can see what types of questions are thrown at you and have that opportunity to reflect now on how you might answer those types of questions.
And I would say as a freshman, I think it's relatively common that a lot of freshman students will reflect back on their high school experience, especially if you've had a leadership position on your high school. And I think that that's totally fine to do. In my
high school clubs, sports, campus activities, student government, or maybe you were on the yearbook or the newspaper staff. That's experience as well. Anything else? You guys are pros, right? You're gonna ace those interviews.
Let's give Emily a hand.